Well, hello again from the CJP Safety and Education Foundation. I've enjoyed doing lots of training in my career, and I still do. But the things that challenge me the most are the things that I do the least, like circle to land maneuvers, single engine approaches. With safety consultant Neil Singer, we put together a series of videos that one of them we call Ready for Recurrent. It'll get you really in shape for your next training event. We hope you enjoy it. Take it away, Neil.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm here at Flight Safety Textron Aviation Training. Today we're going to review some of the maneuvers you may not do in between recurrent sessions to brush up on before your next recurrent. For our clean stall, we're at a safe altitude. We've completed our pre-maneuver tasks. As we pass through 130 knots, we'll disconnect the autopilot. We want to ensure we stop trimming as we approach the green circle speed so as to prevent excessive pitch up on the recovery. At our first indication of stall, we're going to simultaneously add takeoff thrust and lower our nose roughly 5 degrees pitch down. Recover. Once we feel we're safely out of the red low airspeed awareness range, we can pitch back slowly to the flight director to regain our altitude. And as we accelerate through 140 knots or so, we can reduce power. That'll help us avoid ballooning on the recovery. For the takeoff configuration stall, as we decelerate through 130 knots, we'll disconnect the autopilot. As with all stalls, as we pass through the airspeed where the green circle is, we'll stop trimming nose up so as to prevent excessive nose up attitude on recovery. We can roll into a 20 to 30 degree bank here. Some pilots like to turn the flight director off. Some pilots like to just spin the heading bug around 180 to 270 degrees and use the flight director for guidance. That comes down to personal preference. At the recovery, we'll simultaneously add takeoff thrust, lower our nose 5 degrees, and roll our wings level. We can sync our heading bug so that the flight director provides us useful information. As we accelerate through VREF plus 10, the flaps can come up. And as we accelerate through 130 to 140 knots, we can start reducing our power, targeting around 65% N1. That'll help us from ballooning during the recovery. For our landing configuration stall, as we pass through 130 knots, we'll disconnect the autopilot. As we pass through the green circle speed, we'll stop trimming nose up. At the first indication of stall, we're going to simultaneously add takeoff thrust, lower our nose about 5 degrees, and we're going to pause before we bring our flaps up to the takeoff and approach setting to ensure that the stall warning has ceased and we're comfortably above the red low speed regime. Stop trimming. Takeoff thrust. We're lowering our nose. And we're comfortably out of the red airspeed range. Flaps can come to 15. We have a positive rate. The gear can come up. We're VREF plus 10. The flaps can come up. And again, at 130 to 140 knots, we'll reduce our power. Takeoff thrust is set. Airspeed's alive. .70 knots cross check. V1. Rotate. Positive rate. Gear up. Flight level change. V2. Confirming we have a left engine failure. Applying rudder trim as necessary. Ball is mostly centered, slightly deflected towards the good engine to minimize side slip. Now we're waiting to our predetermined acceleration altitude of 1,520 feet MSL, 1,500 AGL. At the appropriate altitude, we can engage the autopilot if we like. We just have to make sure we keep helping that yaw damp with the rudder. It doesn't have the authority to control it on its own. At acceleration altitude, we can set Wiener. Passing through V2 plus 10, the flaps can come up. And achieving Wiener, we can set continuous thrust and run our engine failure checklist. The two-engine go-around may not seem like a difficult maneuver, but when we haven't done one since our last Recurrent, it can be tricky to execute. We're approaching minimums. And there's minimums. Let's go around. Pickle. Power. Pitch. Flaps 15. Positive rate. Gear up. Nav. A safe altitude above terrain and safe airspeed. Flaps up. Climb thrust. Flight level change 170. And as we pass through autopilot engagement height, we'll engage the autopilot, confirm it's engaged, and that our modes are as desired. Single engine go-around is probably the most difficult maneuver we practice in the sim. Let's review. We're approaching minimums. Pickle, power, pitch, confirm flaps at 15, positive rate, gear up, nav, flight level change via approach. Rudder trim as necessary to assist. We're now flying the published MIST procedure with GPS guidance. a safe altitude, we can engage the autopilot, remembering to assist the yaw damp with rudder force. At acceleration altitude, we can set Wiener. Here, approach plus 10, the flaps can come up. And reaching Wiener, we can set climb thrust and run our single engine go-around checklist. Review these procedures as much as you need before your next training event to make for a more efficient and relaxed Recurrent experience.
Thank you, Neil. That advice can be life-saving. There's much more safety material like this available on our website at citationjetpilots.com. Just click on the Safety tab. We'll see you soon and fly safe.